just an idea on the American dream. It's something I was ruminating on this morning. Today's oil change day, so I got all my work done, and now I have time to actually do this video and talk about the idea of the American dream. And we need to talk about what this is, because I know everybody keeps saying the American dream's dead, the American dream was a lie, it was a nightmare, blah blah blah. The American dream, as I see it, was an ideal, not an idea, but an ideal that you strive for. And part of that was, once again, hard currency. Founders are very clear about that. Not to sound like a broken record, but it's like, dude, it's the truth. And property ownership. Now, there's the discrepancy that happens here, where it's like, okay, are you talking about personal property or are you talking about private property? Because there's a lot of people, I don't want private property. You're like, well, no, you do. But remember, back then, private property was the same thing. How did you become a property owner? You went about 5 or 10 miles west and said, I'll take it. Because remember, if you're new to my body of work here, okay, you understand that ownership, is implied, or responsibility is implied with ownership. Okay, so if you own a thing, you are then responsible for it. So if you own property, you are then responsible for that property. And if you're responsible for that property, that means that you actually have to have, you have a stake in the game, right? And you want that. That's really what you want. You want that for people. It's where the idea of like the idea of starter homes, right? Starter homes, you know where that came from? Starter homes for younger people. It wasn't because, what it was to get them used to the idea of ownership, to get them used to the idea of having to maintain their property, to get them used to understanding how, if the plumbing breaks or there's a problem with the pipe, you have to deal with that, right? You either learn how to do it yourself or you hire somebody else to do it. And rather than just call a guy and say, hey, it's your problem, right? So in that case, it teaches responsibility, and that's been lost, right? And it's been done on purpose. When you take a civilization and you take away their ownership of the civilization, you take away their responsibility to it. When you do that, you get this mess. You get this, and it just gets worse from here, because people don't feel a connection with their country. They don't feel a connection with their countrymen. They don't feel a connection with the land itself. Okay, they don't get that. And so the American dream, the ideal, was that people were to own, okay, not be making payments for 30 years to a bunch of foreign bankers. Okay, who print money out of nothing. That's a recent phenomenon. That's in the last 100-odd years, right? It started off 1865. We talked about 1865, around about April-ish. And that's when it started. And then it got into a fever pitch in 1913. And it's been pretty much downhill from there. And it's just been nonstop hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. 1934 and so on. And that's what ended up happening. That's how we got here, right? The history that you're taught couldn't possibly have led to the present in which we currently live. It's not possible, right? Go back and carry it through to its logical conclusion, and you would not end up with a dystopian shithole if all of that history that you're told was true, right? So the American dream, while different for everybody, there was a common thread, and the common thread was that of ownership. And you didn't want to take that away. You didn't want a nation of endless renters. And you didn't want people that, because there's a lot of folks out there that this is where the Limbauhism comes in. That's what I call it anyway. Okay, Rush was a great propagandist. He was. I mean, he was awesome at it. Second to none. A spectacular propagandist, but a propagandist nonetheless. And a lot of people on the right believed a lot of that bullshit that he was peddling about, people just have to go. They believe, just like Dave Ramsey. They believe all the bullshit Dave Ramsey peddles, right? Like, oh, well, just go get a better job. Like, yeah, you sent all those to China and India because you wanted bigger profits, with your 401k. So if you didn't want those bigger profits, then all of that manufacturing and all those so-called good jobs could have stayed here in the country, and then Americans could have done those jobs, and then they would have no problem at all affording things. In fact, they'd be able to afford things in cash, in the generic sense of cash. I don't mean like dollars. I'm talking about there was no debt attached to it, where they could just pay for it and not be paying on it for 30 or 40 years. And then constantly refine it and on and on because, oh my God, something happened. No, they'd actually have money to be able to do these kinds of things. But then the 401ks and all of these ridiculous investment vehicles wouldn't be booming, right? And that isn't the American dream. That never was. That whole idea of just, this is that delusion of, well, but I can just invest my money and then do nothing. Somebody asked me, like, what should we do with our money if real estate isn't available or if it's off the table? What should we do with our money? I've answered this before, but I'll answer it again, and maybe a little more clearly. You shouldn't have to do anything with your money. You understand? You shouldn't. I mean, have you ever thought about this? Like, why do you have to do something with your money? Well, to make money with it. Why do you have to make money with it? I mean, this is a serious question. Like, why do you have to? What's the reasoning that you have to make money with it? Well, because things are costing more money. That's inflation. What if there was zero inflation? If you have zero inflation, then you don't really need to make any money with your money. You just save your money. That's it. And for those of you out there, the Christians, because I know I have a few Christians that follow me and who don't understand me probably entirely, but they say, well, but the parable of the servants, right? The servants, each one of the servants got a talent of silver, and the one invested it and lost it. The other one invested it, and became really successful, and then the other one didn't do anything with it, right? And you guys, you don't understand the way that story plays out. What Josh is saying, he's making kind of a joke on the punchline is the third guy, where the master is all upset about it. Like, well, you should have at least taken it and given it to this fool banker who promises you a return. Because that's the punchline. You understand? That was the punchline of a joke that he's telling. It doesn't really translate very well, but that's a punchline. And the reason it's a joke, it's because the bankers are offering you a return on your deposit that they can't actually do, right? They have to go make money with it. They have to go make loans with that, and then assuming that those loans are profitable, then they can pay out, a return on the interest, right? It's the definition of a Ponzi scheme. It's a joke, and it just doesn't translate very well when you that at least that's how I read it. That's how I see it. That was a joke, and you shouldn't have to actually make a return on your money. You should be able to just live your life, save your money, and then spend it later. But you have to keep making a return because your money is perpetually losing value. It's losing spending power, and it's losing spending power because they're printing money out of nothing. And they're constantly bailing out each other, and they're bailing out their rent seekers, and they're bailing out all their friends, and they're bailing, and then they're bailing out all the illegals, or they're giving them money, and then of course they know that money's going to go right back into the banks. They know it's going to go right back into the system, right? It creates a closed loop system, and what do you get out of it? Inflation, high taxes. That's what you get out of it. Just like the young people who say, why don't Americans have free health care? Europe, we're over here in Europe, we have all kinds of free shit. The reason you have free shit in Europe is because Americans are paying $600 for an aspirin. That's why yours is free. It's not free. There's no such thing as free. Sorry, young people, there is no such thing as free. That is not a thing. It has never been a thing throughout all of human existence on this planet. You live on a finite planet. I don't know how much more forceful I can say that from just a physics standpoint. Nothing is free. Somebody is paying for it. It's just that Americans are paying for it through inflation and paying for military protection for these other countries. That's why they can do that.